Guten Tag, liebe Zuschauer und herzlich willkommen beim heutigen Webinar von Britenet. Mein Name ist Roderich Körner und ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie heute zugeschaltet sind. Bevor ich das Wort an meinen Kollegen Łukasz Nienartowicz übergebe, möchte ich noch ein paar Worte an Sie richten. Das heutige Webinar ist die Auftaktveranstaltung zu einer Workshop-Reihe, zu der wir Sie als Webinar-Teilnehmer exklusiv einladen. In den Workshops zeigen wir Ihnen Fallstudien und Lösungen aus verschiedenen Branchen auf und stehen Ihnen für Fragen und Probleme zur Verfügung. Das Ganze diskret online. Sie bekommen also direkt Antworten auf Fragen und Inspirationen, wie Sie die Herausforderungen in Ihrem Unternehmen bewältigen können. Uns ist ein Austausch unter Experten wichtig und das losgelöst vom Unternehmensumfeld. Informationen und Anmeldungen zu den Workshops finden Sie am Ende des Webinars hier eingeblendet und später auch auf unserer LinkedIn-Seite und Homepage. Aber nun zum Thema des heutigen Tages. Ich gebe jetzt das Wort an meinen Kollegen Łukasz, der Ihnen die 5 Schlüsselfragen beim Aufbau einer datengestützten Unternehmung beantwortet. Łukasz steht nachher live für die Beantwortung Ihrer Fragen zur Verfügung. Diese können Sie über das Chatfenster auf YouTube stellen. Aber nun genug der Vorrede. Dzień dobry, Łukasz, und liebe Zuschauer, bis gleich.
In May 2017, the cover of Economist announced data is the new oil. Forbes chimed in, calling data the new gold. On the other hand, data keeps multiplying. You might have seen this chart. According to Moore's law, the data we have doubles every 2 years. I look at this and have just one question. If data is the new gold and there is so much of it, why don't we look like this? That's because it is a misconception. Data is worthless. What matters is the information. And that's nothing new. Nothing has changed since 100,000 years ago, when our ancestor came out into a clearing and spotted a little bush with blueberries. Data on the height of the bush, the color of its leaves, the fruit was in itself worthless. Once the data was proceeded into information that the fruit was edible and one could fill their stomach with it, it gained significance. How this is connected with our organizations? We are ready to ask the first of the 5 key questions. Can our organization be destroyed by data overload? I will answer like any good IT specialist. It depends. It depends on what strategy we adopt, and there are 3 of them. The first strategy is strategy of a blind. It is simply consists in ignoring data. And some organizations do just that. They ignore the existing of data, they don't take advantage of it in their decision-making process. Do you know how most companies verify their solvency? They log into their bank account and check if there is money there. And I'm not just talking about microenterprises. The problem of ignoring data and adjusting it to previously made hypotheses is common, and probably we all seen it. I will not elaborate on this scenario any further. Back to our question. Is this attitude to data overload dangerous? In the long run, we can expect that we either make a grave mistake or that our competition that do use data will defeat us thanks to greater efficiency or better decisions. Let us move to the second strategy, the collector strategy. There are companies that collect all and store all the data which they have access to in the name of a big data concept. Yes, there was a time when smart people advise that the more data you collect, the better. Collect whatever you can. And this strategy has two problems. First, such data overload, along with a poor data management, results in the same inability to use this data in the decision-making process. So the bottom line is the same as in the first strategy. Second, besides, it generates maintenance costs, so this strategy is even worse than ignoring data. One of the retail networks in Poland has been collected data on the movement of the trolleys in their stores for several years. And what does it do with it? Nothing. It only pays the cost of the storage, and in a while it will turn out that a significant part of this data is no longer important because the store layout and customer behavior has changed. To sum up, we can say that if you collect data but don't use it, you're acting against your own company. The first strategy is a strategy of a club bouncer. We make data selection. It is the ability to manage and use data which is crucial to gaining an advantage over competition. The key to success here is distinguishing which data is precious and which is not. The topic of data value assessments is extremely broad, and let us take a look at its two main aspects. First, let's go back to this chart. It comes from the report sponsored by Seagate, a manufacturer of hard drives. A coincidence? I don't think so. But if we look closely at the report, we will also notice that chart. It shows that the amount of critical and important data is growing, although not as dynamically as the rest. We intuitively know that the data from YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok probably has less value than the data on purchase made by our customer in our store. An interesting approach to the subject of data value was proposed a while ago by marketing agencies. They divide data into three types: first, second, and third party. First-party data is the data which our organization collects on its own. It's the data from our CRM, marketing, financial, and call center systems. Second-party data is the first-party data from our trusted partner. For example, if we run a publishing house, we can obtain sales data from trusted ebook stores. Third-party data is the data collected by completely different entities which charge us for sharing it. Currently, also data from Facebook and Google can be put in this category. And let's look into this using a small case study. A few years ago, we built a 360-degree view on customer and marketing automation system for Skoda. At that time, it was a very innovative project, and the data from CRM systems, car dealers, and factories was very useful in building marketing campaigns. This was a first-party data. At one of the stages, the data was enriched by Volkswagen Financial Services with the information regarding expiring leases. You see, when it comes to new cars, the business market is a lot bigger than the consumer market. And companies often use leasing, so this information was priceless. In other words, the combination of their own data with data from their trusted partner was critical. But in the next stage, the data was to be enriched with profile provided by marketing agency, and at that point, three main issues came up. Firstly, the cost of obtaining this data was relatively high. Secondly, the data correlation level between these two sources was only a few percent. And thirdly, the data did not go directly to Skoda, but was merged by a marketing agency which used very simple and rather ineffective algorithms. What is interesting today, the use of the data from Facebook or Google works in the similar way. Does it mean that is it not worth using this data? There are cases when it is worth it. But I would like to point out that the most important and therefore requiring our greatest attention is our own data, then our partners' data, and only then the data from marketing agencies, Facebook or Google. So answering the question number one, we have two suicidal strategies, ignoring and collecting, and one correct strategy, data management, which will boost our organization. The key here is to understand the data value, which leads us to question number two. What do data ecosystems and pathological real estate development have in common? As we know, apartments and old buildings are again very popular on the real estate market in large cities. There are many reasons for the situation, but one of them is that the way new homes are designed. Blocks with a minimum amount of greenery, too few parking spaces, the apartments in which the toilet is next to the kitchen. We call this pathological real estate development. And this phenomenon is a combination of haste and extreme cost cutting. And the same applies to IT architecture. If we cross a certain line of haste and cost cutting, what we'll get won't allow us to improve our business, but to the contrary, it will cause problems and increase maintenance costs. The great example from a few years ago, this was a crazy big data idea in the name of which companies developed data warehouses, abandoned them for data lakes which are cheaper and easier to build. I have personally experienced such a situation in one company. We are in the middle of implementing of data warehouse and reporting system, but suddenly there was a sharp turn. The warehouse project was abandoned, and instead a data lake construction project began. I admit that we did not take this project, but there was a company that did. The project was supposed to be short, 3 months. After all, data lake is just means uploading raw data to Hadoop, and everything should work right away. 4 years have passed since then, and the data lake still isn't ready. After a while, the market understood the data lake cost is 50% of the data warehouse, but it provides only 10% of its functionality, while the hidden costs of using are very high. Does it mean that data lakes doesn't make sense? Of course it does, but you need to have a proper application for it. Let's look at another story, a data ecosystem for the Ministry of Finance. First of all, you must know that currently the Ministry of Finance has the largest data collection in Poland. In addition to tax returns, they also have e-invoices, standards audit file for tax. But interestingly, the Ministry of Finance is also in charge of, for example, the settlement of highway tolls based on IoT devices, collecting data from trucks and passenger cars. So, to build such a huge data ecosystem, we must approach its architecture with common sense. A few years ago, in the first attempt, the ministry tried to create one coherent data warehouse, but due to performance problems, this project ended up a fiasco. The second attempt happened in the midst of a big data hype. So the ministry tried to use Hadoop and similar technologies, of course, due to the fact that analysis at the Ministry of Finance must be accurate and foolproof. This approach was even worse than the previous one. It was, of course, abandoned because there was no chance of bringing any parts of this data ecosystem into production environment. I'm pleased to be part of the third attempt to building a data ecosystem in the Ministry of Finance, and Although I cannot go into details, I can say that year into this project, several areas of the data warehouse operate in production environment, and they are gradually being expanded. The key to success in this situation is appropriate selection of technology suitable for a particular type of data. So, how to match technology to our problem? First, the big data boom is over, and we can return to the assumption that by default, we keep data in transactional databases. Second, data lake is a slightly faster stage, so just an integration layer. It won't replace a data warehouse, which should always be built on the transactional database. Third thought. All pathologies involving the transfer of data from transactional databases to NoSQL or file databases should be met with resistance. It really doesn't make sense to make structured data, to take structured data and to mess it up. It does make sense to use Hadoop if we talk about non-standard data like PDF files, images, be huge, not to be confused with large, huge data volume. When we are talking about low value of a single record, ideally two of these three. Now that we are coming back to the concept of record value. Sticking to the example of a Ministry of Finance, a single invoice carries a lot of information. Even if the volume of such invoices is big, it is worth keeping them in a transactional database. However, if we talk about the value of a single entry related to a vehicle moving on a motorway, it is small. Only a few thousand of such records defines a vehicle's route and constitute significant information. Therefore, the records related to car journey can be kept in cheaper and faster file database, but the aggregated information about the road should go to transactional database. 5. There is a misconception that if data is to be processed in the real time, it must be stored in a file database. It is not true. Tools such as Kafka or Spark could just as successfully save data to SQL Server as to Hadoop. So, to sum up, I can see an analogy between pathological real estate development and the development of data ecosystems. So, before we start building, it is worth taking 2 steps back to check if what we have designed makes sense. Will we solve our problems with this architecture or just create new ones? So, the third question, is it always worth imitating Google? We, the IT people, like to think of ourselves as nerds. Handsome nerds, but of course, but obviously in flannel plaid shirts, a bit unshaven. And on the other hand, when it comes to choosing technology, we behave like models on a catwalk of an extreme avant-garde designer. It is fashion that matters, not the sense of purpose or taste. It resembles that the press conference at the certain bank during which the host boasted that the bank will do blockchain. Applause in the room. Only one noisy journalist at the back asked, "What are you going to do with this blockchain?" "What do you mean?" The outraged host answers, "We will do blockchain." Trends, or someone says buzzwords about all. However, the problem itself stems from something else. People often look at the new technologies from the perspective of Google did this, Amazon did that, and Microsoft did yet another thing. And they completely ignore the fact that these are IT companies whose revenues are entirely based on technology. In other words, we compare the situation when IT companies investing in something, what is the main source of their income, with a situation in which, for example, an insurance company is looking for a technology to support its core business. And this is a very significant difference. In the case of companies from other industries, it is always worth taking 2 steps back and answering, how will I be able to use this new technology to gain competitive advantage? Is this technology mature enough? This chart showing the level of hype for a particular technology which Gartner creates every year, and it can be very helpful. It illustrates how expectation for a particular technology grows and decline, and they normalize. It is worth keeping in mind that this is what the expectation regarding any IT technology looks like. Additional, we should always take into account the availability of specialists on the job market. Technology may be great, but what if there is no way to use it? An interesting example of this, of insight into these innovative technologies is the use of a chatbot and voicebot in business. These tools have been recently getting a lot of hype, and they can really improve our business. Their most common mentioned advantages, including lowering the cost of operating and customer service desk, and their 24/7 availability. And as usual, in the case of hype, we skip a few other but equally important questions. A chatbot is available all the time, but do we measure how many customers did not manage to get things done due to imperfection of this technology? Thanks to a voicebot, we reduce the operating cost of the call center, but how many sales or dissatisfied customers did we lose due to this technology? As far as I know, no one measured it. The key to using modern technology is to understand how mature they are now. Let's look at 2 cases. One of Polish banks used the voicebot to verify whatever you really want to take a loan. It doesn't sell it, but calls you and asks if you still need it. If you do, it puts you through to a seller, and this is a very simple and very effective application. A courier company uses a voicebot as a first line of customer support. It is hard to go through the stage of identifying the tracking number because the bot is not so patient to listen the long string of number till the end. It is also hard to persuade him to put through to a human being. The customer experience is terrible. To sum up, it is always worth imitating Google. I am tempted to answer that most often is it not. In our business, it is crucial not to blindly follow technological fads, but to evaluate each technology in terms of maturity or sensibility to use it. To continue the subject of buzzwords, let's move to the greatest of them all these days, to artificial intelligence. So the next question is, what do machine learning algorithms really do? I have once witnessed a conversation in the sales process. A client's employee asked a specialist from the seller's side, "Ma'am, my understanding is that once we implement the artificial intelligence, it will tell us how to sell, right?" Well, unfortunately, it won't. Machine learning algorithms today are often perceived as something of a crossover between human intelligence and advanced magic. However, the reality is completely different. In most applications, its advantage does not consist in making better decisions than human, but rather in making many decisions in a bulk. This means that specialists will better predict the needs for a specific product in a specific store. But such an analysis of several thousand products in several thousand stores would likely take him or her a year. An algorithm can do that many times a day. So, what do we need to know about machine learning before we start using it? First of all, there is this thing what often scares clients during sales meeting. We can do everything right, and the model may not work. Maybe there are simply no statistically significant indicators in our data upon which the algorithm could learn or to suggest correct decision. Machine learning is real innovation in this respect. We take the risk knowing that it may fail. Secondly, we must have a clear defined purpose for the model. As machine learning projects are not the cheapest, they often involve many departments and many decision makers at once. And here's a problem, because the model are not genius at our whims. An example, if the sales department wants to sell more and the logistic department wants to reduce stocks in stores, these are probably conflicting goals, and one model will have a problem achieving both of them at once. Thirdly, data. I know that all of us have already heard this, but machine learning really works on the garbage in, garbage out principle. And it is not about having a lot of data. It is useful indeed, but the point is to have data of a good quality and to have it under control. Combining algorithms with uncontrolled data is a fast track to failure. Fourthly, machine learning models do not work on laptops. What we have created on Jupyter Notebook is not ready for production use. For that, we need the entire environments for managing data, model versions, and their launch, as well as for detection errors or drop the quality of results. This is a separate field called MLOps, and it is really worth investing in specialists here. So, is it worth using machine learning despite these challenges? I believe is it not only worth, but it is necessary. Currently, many activities performed by specialists in our companies, such as logistics, stock planning, financial analysis, customer service, or risk analysis, comes down to very monotonous tasks. And this monotony can be removed by algorithms, allowing our employees to control only complex cases or spend more time on improving our business. To summarize, what do machine learning algorithms really do? The answer is they will not perform very complicated activities or make the most difficult decision for us. They will do as much as we teach them, and they will not be smarter than us, at least not yet. Instead, they can make millions of much simpler decisions within minutes. Machine learning algorithms don't do magic, but they give our employees time to do it. The last of our question: what should IT specialists learn from Simon Sinek? Probably we all know Simon Sinek, one of the most popular TED Talk speaker and the man who has written a few bestsellers, including Start With Why. In this book, Sinek explained on the macro scale what question like why are we doing something, what makes us to do this, are crucial for companies, NGOs, and social movements. But what can specialists at the intersection of IT and business learn from Simon Sinek? When I start working with clients, the first question that often comes up is what? What exactly do you want to do? Let's suppose that they want to build a data lake. Getting an answer to how they want to do that is equally easy. We want to use Hadoop, Spark, Kafka, Hive. We want data lake to work fast, in real time, to be efficient, cheap, and so on. And then I ask the Simon Sinek style question, but why exactly do you want to build a data lake? And here answers vary. Sometimes it's because we have a lot of data from IT devices installed in the entire chain of our stores, and we need to collect this data, store it cheaply for further processing in a data warehouse, in order to use it later to train a machine learning algorithm, which will help our customers. And then I feel calmer. But sometimes the answer is to replace and get rid of data warehouse. When we start to explain that this is not the tool, what the tool is for, that this is a bad idea, and that we won't do it. But the worst situation is when we want a data lake, but we don't know why. Every IT project and every data-related project in particular must have its why. If we are to create a set of reports, what do we want to control thanks to them? If we want to build a data-driven application, how it's supposed to change the way we interact with our clients? I must admit that I have deliberately saved this question, the question about why, for the end of the presentation. Although we always have to ask it first thing. What really pains us? What do we want to change and improve in our organization? How can we take better care of our customers? This is where everything starts. Next, there is only implementations. Once we know what we want, we can ask ourselves this question. Do we have data for that? If yes, great. If not, where can we obtain it? Then we can think how to tame it in a good non-pathological architecture, how to prepare it to being used, how to control its flow, and how to measure its quality. Next, it is time to choose the technology that will use the data. Sometimes a report is enough, and sometimes we have to use a neural network. But the decision about what tool to use cannot be based on trends. Sometimes simpler and more mature tools turn out to be more effective than the latest but still undeveloped solution. If we can see the benefits of introducing the latest trends, it is always worth remembering that machine learning and other fashionable concepts such as cloud, blockchain, big data are not magic wands that can solve all the problems. Each of these technologies has advantages and limitations, but when it used properly, they can be a game changers. After this summary, I would like to share with you an idea that I have for years. I have talked about these 5 steps in building a data-driven organization in a rather judgmental way, for a reason. Well, what distinguishes us from artificial intelligence is the ability to think critically. At the beginning of the presentation, I asked the question, if data is the new gold, and there is so much of it, why don't we all look like this? And the problem is not that the information in our data is worthless. On the contrary, I'm sure it could make us rich. The problem lies elsewhere, namely in our critical thinking. Today's IT world is filled with marketing that promises quick success with the help of the latest technology. Marketing, as always, works on the principle of quick and easy. But is it not that the real world is like? Why? Because the latest technologies do not solve problems. Problems are solved by well-chosen technologies. So let's not be tempted by projects like quick, before we'll realize that it makes no sense. In contrast, there are no shortcuts in data. You have to do it in order. Data requires our time and our resources, but the final results will not disappoint us because the good data can drive your company just a good quality fuel drives a car. And I will leave you with these two thoughts, wishing you spectacular success in building your own data-driven organization.
Ja, vielen herzlichen Dank, Lukas. Dziękuję für diesen äußerst interessanten Vortrag. An dieser Stelle nochmal der Hinweis, mit dem Vortrag gerade eben haben wir unsere Workshop-Reihe angefangen, wo wir dann spezifisch in die Probleme und Anwendungen dann eintauchen können. Ich lade Sie herzlich ein, sich für unsere Workshops anzumelden. Wie das geht, sehen Sie hier auf der Webseite, auf LinkedIn und in dem Banner, der unter mir eingeblendet wird. Jetzt haben wir im Laufe des Vortrags einige Fragen gekriegt, wo ich auch jetzt meinen Kollegen Lukas auf die Bühne holen möchte. Lukas, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for your keynote. Ich werde das jetzt simultan ins Englische übersetzen. Lukas, we got a range of questions here to you. The first one being, womit fange ich beim Aufbau einer datengestützten Unternehmung an? Also was sind die ersten Schritte? So the question is, where should we start in building a data-driven organization? Like, could you tell us what would be the first steps?
I think always the best is to assess the current situation. Yeah? At Britenet, we offer our new clients an audit of a data ecosystem, and it took from 2 to 4 weeks. And yeah, we covers three key areas. First, to assess the current state of a data ecosystem. Second, to collect very, very general business and technical requirements, and then to mix these two things and to give a recommendation on how to change, how to develop the data ecosystem. And I think these three parts of information are very important to start building a data-driven organization.
Ja, also thanks. I'll just translate. Also was Lukas gesagt hat, am Anfang müssen wir erstmal das Data Ecosystem, was vorliegt, inventarisieren. Das ist das, was wir als erstes vorschlagen. Und das ist ein Prozess, der 2 bis 4 Wochen dauern kann. Dabei erhält der Kunde oder das Unternehmen einen Bericht über den Ist-Zustand. Die grundsätzlichen Business-Anforderungen werden da drin erfasst und abschließend gibt es einen Bericht von uns, wie wir aus unserer Sicht das Projekt angehen können oder was man als nächstes machen kann. Das nutzen unsere Kunden dann gerne auch als Benchmark zu anderen Marktteilnehmern, aber grundsätzlich wäre das ein sehr greifbarer erster Startpunkt für die weitere Zusammenarbeit. Wir haben noch eine Frage. Łukasz, we have another question. What is the biggest obstacle to overcome in a data-driven transformation? Also was ist das größte Hindernis, was bei der Transformation zu einer datengesteuerten Unternehmung zu überwinden ist? What would you say?
I think the biggest obstacle is in people's mentality. The data-driven transformation is a big change also in the human sense. Yeah, people need to learn to believe reports, algorithms, machine learning models. On the other hand, they must always be careful because the algorithm could be wrong. So this change, this change is also a change of mentality. So it also requires to manage the process of this change. And it is impossible to go organization and say to people that, yeah, from tomorrow we will be data driven. Yeah, this is not the way. I saw a few organizations which are data driven only from the IT side, and this changing of mentality is, in my opinion, the most difficult thing in this process.
Okay, also was Lukas sagt, ist, natürlich gibt es einmal technische Herausforderungen zu überwinden sind, aber was er noch viel mehr beobachtet ist, dass die Vorbehalte in dieser Transformation bei den Teams liegen, wo man keine grundsätzliche Scheu hat, sich an eine neue Arbeitsweise zu gewöhnen, sondern es ist ein Gewöhnungsprozess, ja, also es ist die eigene Arbeitsweise zu ändern, mit Algorithmen zu arbeiten, ihnen einerseits zu vertrauen, andererseits sie aber auch ständig kritisch zu hinterfragen, ist ein Wandel in der Arbeitswelt, den wir vollziehen müssen. Es ist also kein Schalter, den man einfach so umlegen kann, sondern eher wie eine Transformation, wirklich eine lange Reise zu sehen, die Schritt für Schritt in kleinen Schritten genommen werden muss. Thank you, Łukasz. Now we have another question that came in via LinkedIn, and that is, how do the ML ops, machine learning ops, how will they work in harmony with the business intelligent need of the business?
Yeah, this is a very good question, because I think it is necessary to use MLOps with people, with technologies, to be able to provide any things for business, because we cannot see like MLOps, like DevOps business. This parts of IT work is hidden from a business, but if we would like to build an algorithm, and it should be stable, it should give us good advices or good decisions, it must be built on a strong fundament, and this is part of this MLOps. We cannot see this, but this is this part. And if we would like to build, for example, algorithm which will give answer in real time, or it should be gives a lot of answers every day, millions, for example, of answers. We need to build a proper environment. So if business would like to, we would like to know these things in real time, the answer to this question. And we build the algorithm, but we also have to build this environment to be ready, to be stable, to fulfill these requirements from business. So I think these two things go in the same direction.
Also was Lukas sagt, ist, dass die ML-Ops natürlich auch ganzheitlich in das Unternehmen integriert werden müssen, um auch die Business Intelligence Bedürfnisse so zu befriedigen. Zum einen muss es von der Infrastruktur her ein starkes Fundament geben, aber gleichzeitig muss es auch in die Prozesse, in die Arbeitsweise des Unternehmens fest verwoben werden, um die Stärken voll ausspielen zu können. Thanks, Lucas. We have another question here. Wir haben noch eine Frage über YouTube reingekommen. And that is, how do you involve stakeholders and decision makers to support a data-driven transformation in the organization? Also, wie ist das Stakeholder-Management im Prozess zum Wandel hin, beziehungsweise bei der Transformation zu einer datengestützten Organisation? Can you share some of your experiences in working with stakeholders and decision makers?
Yes, in most, this is very also important question, because this is key to because we can be prepared, we can be, I think, ready from this IT side, also for business side, but we need to be sure that everyone in the organization understand that this is a good way to spend money, and especially stakeholders, they should be also really sure that this is a good way. So how we can do this? Firstly, working with people who are responsible for this transformation is to work together to prepare presentations, to prepare some information, even to go to these stakeholders together to explain them that this is very important and this is life or be death, for example, for organization. And I think this is, but I think this is not a big problem today, not a huge problem, because most of stakeholders understand that data now are very important. I think the problem is to show them a good plan, a good strategy to build this data-driven organization, because we cannot go there and say, oh, we are ready, we can start. We should be a plan. And I say this is a very important thing to understand what we need. I think I cover this in this 5 questions. But the question is what we need, what we can get from our data, and to show those people, that this is a good deal for them also.
Also was er gesagt hat, für die, die es auf Englisch nicht ganz verstanden haben, ist es natürlich, dass es im Vorfeld eines solchen allumfassenden Projektes ist natürlich genau das, was er macht, ist das Einbeziehen von Entscheidungsträgern, von Stakeholdern im gesamten Unternehmen. Fängt mit der Frage nach dem Warum und nach dem Was an, was er auch in dem Vortrag behandelt hat. Also die Simon Sinek Start with Why gilt auch hier. Und dann geht es um die kontinuierliche Betreuung in Form von Schulungen, in Form von Workshops, in Form von einer weiteren Ausarbeitung aller Prozesse, jetzt nicht nur im Unternehmen selber, sondern zusammen mit uns, dass die Entscheidungsträger und andere Stakeholder in dem Unternehmen auf dem Weg mitgenommen werden, die Vorzüge dieser datengestützten Transformation zu erkennen und auch in kleinen Schritten da herangeführt werden. Thanks, Łukasz. This question leads to the last question that we received over YouTube. Now, I have to ask as well, ich muss auch mal fragen, so ist die letzte Frage des Tages, warum sollten wir denn Britenet jetzt dann für solch ein Projekt nehmen? So, can you tell us, like, a 2-sentence summary, why should we choose Britenet for such a project, for a data-driven transformation project?
Yeah, I think I have 2 thoughts. First is that we provide end-to-end services in this area, so we can support the organization from data analysis, through integration, building data warehouse, building data lake, then even to building reports, building machine learning algorithm or data-driven applications. So we can be a partner for all the way to becoming a data-driven organization. And the second, our experience, we have completed 70 different projects in data area. So our team is very experienced. And what is, I think, now equally important, that we have a very low employer churn rate. So yeah, so this is important because of this day and the work market, and yeah. So I think that's briefly it.
Thanks. Nochmal kurz zusammengefasst, um auch mal ein bisschen Werbung in eigener Sache zu machen. Also er sagt, es gibt eigentlich 2 Gründe, weshalb man sich auch für Britenet entscheiden kann. Es gibt sicherlich noch sehr viel mehr, aber in dieser Hinsicht ist einmal der Erfahrungsschatz, den wir mit über 70 Projekten in den Bereichen mit nationalen und internationalen Kunden aufgebaut haben. Ein Grund, wir haben sehr viel Wissen im Team, wir haben eine sehr geringe Teamfluktuation, weshalb wir sicherstellen, dass die Erfahrung, die wir aufgebaut haben, dass die im Unternehmen bleibt. Und das Zweite ist sehr technisch, wir decken ein großes Spektrum an Angeboten ab. Wir liefern diese End-to-End-Services, von der eingangs erwähnten Datenanalyse über die Integration, Aufbau von Data Warehouses und Data Lakes bis hin aber auch zu einem Reporting, zum Aufbau von Machine Learning Modellen und datengetriebenen Anwendungen. Thank you, Lukas. We are about to come to an end. Wir kommen hiermit jetzt zum Ende unserer heutigen Veranstaltung. Ich möchte mich recht herzlich dafür bedanken, dass Sie zugeschaltet haben. Ich erwähne es gerne noch einmal, dass das heute der Startpunkt für eine Workshop-Reihe ist, an der Sie gerne teilnehmen können. Die Details dazu finden Sie bei uns auf unserer Microsite, in unserem LinkedIn-Profil und auf unserer Homepage. Lukas, sein Team und ich, wir freuen uns sehr, Sie dort begrüßen zu dürfen. Bis dahin würde ich sagen, passen Sie auf sich auf und wenn Sie können, auch noch auf jemand anderen. Auf Wiedersehen. Thank you, Lukas. Take care.
Thank you.